I used to think the people who could walk up to anyone, anywhere, anytime were just built differently. Like they got some confidence gene I didn't. Like they never felt that stomach drop, that internal voice that says, wait, not yet, maybe tomorrow. Me? I sat on the sidelines watching someone else talk to the person I wanted to talk to. I told myself it was just personality, just who I was. That was the most expensive lie I ever believed. Because the research doesn't say confidence is something you have. It says confidence is something you do. And approaching someone you like isn't a talent, it's a skill, with specific, learnable steps that the human brain responds to every single time. Here's what actually works. If this is your first time here, we break down the psychology behind human connection every week. Subscribe and hit the bell. Let's get into it. Trick 1. Warm the interaction before it starts. Here's something I never thought about until I read the research behind it. Cold approaches fail more often than warm ones, not because of what you say, because of how jarring it feels to the other person's brain to go from zero to full social engagement with a complete stranger in 1 second flat. Psychologists call this social priming, and the principle is simple. A small, low-stakes interaction before the real one changes everything. Make brief eye contact and smile before you approach. Not a stare, not a grin, just a moment of recognition. A human acknowledging another human. Acknowledge them in a small way first. Maybe a nod across the room. Maybe a casual comment in passing 5 minutes before the real conversation. What you're doing is letting their brain register you as a safe presence before you say a single meaningful word. There's neuroscience behind this. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection system, evaluates every new social encounter for danger. A cold approach from a complete stranger triggers a mild alert response. The person's guard goes up before you finished your first sentence, but if they've already seen you, already exchanged a micro-interaction, the amygdala classifies you as familiar, and familiar is safe. Safe means open. When I started doing this, approaches went from interruptions to continuations, because by the time I actually walked over, I wasn't a stranger anymore. I was already someone they'd noticed. And that one tiny difference changes the entire emotional climate of the first 30 seconds. Trick 2. Name your nervousness out loud. This one sounds backwards, I know. I spent years trying to hide every trace of anxiety before an approach. Act cool, look unbothered, give nothing away. And it made everything worse, because the effort of hiding nervousness consumed the mental bandwidth I needed to actually be present in the conversation. I was so busy performing calm that I couldn't actually connect. There's a psychological principle called anxiety reappraisal. Research from Harvard shows that naming what you're feeling, actually saying it out loud, reduces its physiological grip almost immediately. Your heart rate drops, your cortisol levels decrease, your prefrontal cortex, the rational thinking part of your brain, comes back online. Something like, I'll be honest, I almost talked myself out of coming over here, does something remarkable. It disarms the situation. It strips away the performance. It makes you instantly human. And most importantly, it makes them feel chosen rather than targeted. There's a difference. Targeted feels like someone running a script. Chosen feels like someone saw something specific in you that made them brave enough to act despite the fear. And people who make other people feel chosen become immediately, almost irrationally attractive. Every single time. If you're finding value in this, hit the like button. Let's keep building. Trick 3. Lead with curiosity, not impression. I spent years approaching people trying to be impressive, trying to show them my best qualities in the first 60 seconds, and I cringe thinking about it now. Because the energy of trying to impress someone is something they feel before you've finished your first sentence. It's slightly performative, slightly tense. It puts pressure on the interaction that kills it before it can breathe. Think about the last time someone was clearly trying to impress you. How did it feel? Probably a little exhausting. A little like you were watching a presentation instead of having a conversation. You wanted them to relax, to be real, to stop selling. The complete opposite of that energy is curiosity. Genuine, unhurried curiosity about who this person actually is. Psychologists have found that people who ask questions from a place of real interest, not to fill silence, not to seem engaged, but because they actually want to know, are consistently rated as more attractive, more intelligent, and more trustworthy than people who lead with statements about themselves. The study that changed how I think about this was published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. Researchers found that people who asked more follow-up questions during conversations were perceived as significantly more likable. Not just marginally, significantly. And the key was follow-up questions specifically. Not scripted questions, not interview questions. Questions that proved you were actually listening. When I shifted from, "let me show you who I am," to, "I actually want to know who you are," the entire texture of every first conversation changed. Because people don't fall for impressive, they fall for interested. Trick 4. Use their name once. Simple, underused, almost unfairly effective. Studies in social psychology consistently show that hearing your own name activates a deeply personal response in the brain. It's processed differently from every other word. It triggers activity in the medial prefrontal cortex, the region associated with self-identity. It signals recognition, safety, connection. Your name is one of the most powerful sounds in any language to use specifically. It's the word that has meant you since before you could understand language. So once you learn their name, use it once. Naturally. Not repeatedly, which crosses into uncomfortable territory fast. Just once, woven into something real. That's actually a great point, and then their name. Or, I hadn't thought of it that way, their name, that's interesting. That single moment creates a level of personal connection that most people never manufacture in an entire first conversation. Because in a world where most interactions feel generic, hearing your own name from someone you just met feels specific. It feels like they see you. Not just anyone, you. Subscribe right now, because the last trick is the one that ties everything together. Trick 5. Match their energy, then gently elevate it. This is the one nobody talks about, and it might be the most powerful of all. When you approach someone, there's a natural energy mismatch. You've been building up to this moment. Your adrenaline is flowing. Your energy is high. But they're in the middle of their day. Their baseline energy is probably much lower than yours in that moment. If you come in at your peak and they're at their baseline, the gap feels jarring. Too intense. Too fast. Too much. Psychologists call the solution to this mirroring, then leading. You first match their current energy level. If they're calm, you're calm. If they're playful, you're playful. If they're reserved, you're reserved. This matching does something powerful. It tells their nervous system, this person is like me. This person is safe. This person gets my rhythm. Once that rapport is established, usually within the first 30 to 60 seconds, you can gradually elevate the energy. A little more warmth, a little more humor, a little more depth. And because you match them first, they follow your lead naturally, without resistance, without force. This is the social equivalent of Wu Wei. You're not pushing, you're flowing. And the other person flows with you because you started where they were, not where you wanted them to be. Trick 6. Give them a graceful exit. This is the trick that separates someone who approaches from someone who connects. Most people, when they finally work up the courage to approach someone, grip the interaction like it's the last lifeboat on a sinking ship. They stay too long, push too hard, don't know when to leave. The counterintuitive move is to build in an exit from the very beginning. Something like, "I know you're probably in the middle of something, but I had to say this real quick." Or, "I'm heading back to my friends in a second, but I wanted to tell you something." This does two things. First, it removes pressure. The other person knows this isn't a trap. They can relax because they know there's a natural ending point. Second, and this is the psychology, when people know something is temporary, they invest more in it. Scarcity increases value. A 3-minute conversation with a built-in exit feels more valuable than a 20-minute conversation where they're looking for a way out. And here's the magic. If the connection is real, they'll extend the conversation themselves. They'll ask you to stay. They'll find reasons to keep talking. And that shift, from you pursuing to them inviting, changes the entire dynamic. You're no longer chasing, you're being chosen. The final truth. Here's what I needed someone to tell me years ago. The approach is not the scary part. The regret is the scary part. The version of you that walks away without saying anything and replays it for days, that's the version that actually hurts. The conversation itself lasts a few minutes. It's just two people talking. And the worst realistic outcome is a polite exchange that goes nowhere. But the best outcome? It changes everything. Choosing to say something instead of walking away has led to some of the most meaningful connections in my life. And it started with one step, one sentence, one moment of deciding that the other person was worth the 30 seconds of discomfort it took to reach them. The research is clear. Confidence is not a trait, it's a practice. And approaches get easier not because the fear goes away, but because you learn that the fear was never the real danger. Silence was. If this changed how you think about approaching people, subscribe and hit that like button. We break down the psychology of human connection every week. Share this with someone who needs that push. Tell us in the comments, what's the one approach you almost didn't make that changed your life? See you in the next one. Irrational panic, or worse, you do something stupid to ruin it. This is called happiness aversion, or cherophobia. If in your past every time you were happy or relaxed something bad happened, a blindside from life, your brain created a terrible association. Happiness equals letting your guard down equals imminent danger. For you, calm is not peace. Calm is the calm before the storm. That is why you prefer to create a small problem, a sabotage, to have control of the chaos rather than wait for fate to blindside you. It is twisted, but it makes sense, right? And this brings us to the final point. Habit number 10, the savior identity. Over-responsibility. I told you at the beginning that this is the one that makes everything else click. If you have made it this far, it is because you know there is something at the bottom driving all of these behaviors. The strangest and most damaging habit of people who have suffered a lot is that they try to save everyone else. You become the therapist for your friends. You are attracted to broken partners who need fixing. You are the one who is always there to listen to everyone else's problems, even when you are falling apart. Why? Because unconsciously, you are trying to save yourself by saving others. You are trying to be for them the person you needed and nobody was. You think that if you fix the world around you, maybe your inner world will stop hurting. But let me tell you something, and I need you to hear this clearly. It is not your job to save anyone to justify your existence. Your pain has given you incredible empathy. Yes, it has given you a brutal capacity for analysis. Yes, but you do not have to pay rent for being alive by helping everyone else. If you recognized yourself in these 10 habits, I do not want you to leave thinking, I am full of trauma. I want you to think, my brain is incredibly smart. It designed 10 complex strategies to keep you alive in a hostile environment. But now you are in a different environment. You no longer need the heavy armor. Before we go, here is a professional tip, the golden key to start changing this. The next time you feel the impulse to over-explain yourself, to apologize for no reason, or to fix someone else's life, use the 5-second pause rule. Count to 5, breathe, and ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to, or because I am afraid? That small pause breaks the autopilot of trauma. Try it today. You will notice the difference. You are not broken. You are a survivor. And survivors can learn to live. Write in the comments which habit hit you the hardest. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share this with someone who has been calling themselves weird their entire life without knowing why. See you in the next one.